Hello everybody, Beau here with another vinyl presentation. Really cool stuff. If you're not familiar with my channel, I have firearms, I have exercise walking videos. I'm going to be adding some guitar videos. Not so much of me playing, but more about guitars themselves. But I might throw in a clip of me playing once in a while. I've been playing for a long time. I'm not that bad at it. And also, we have these 4 vinyl records. You can check out the vinyl playlist. I don't have many uploads yet. It's mostly a firearms review and shooting channel and discussion. And I've been adding a lot of exercise and walking videos. So what do we have before us today? These are what you would call rarities when you collect vinyl records. You almost never run into these. I have thousands of vinyl LPs, probably somewhere between 8 and 10,000. I don't really count them. It's pointless to count them when you get to a certain point. What I should do is catalog everything and the condition they're in. That is really just a tremendous pain in the rear end when you have that many. A couple thousand, okay, that's doable, but you get to a certain point where it becomes a huge undertaking. And it may just be more important to do a catalog of your valuables. So, these 4 right here range in collectability. 2 of them really aren't very collectible. I just like them because I came across them. 2 of them are very collectible. And I will explain each one. This is going to take a few minutes, but I'm not going to go into in-depth detail about the production and all that stuff. So basically, these are test pressings, are what they're called. And a test pressing is an in-house record label pressing where they test the press to see how the vinyl is going to sound, if there's any defects in it, and they send them out to different executives. Like an executive in an office will get a copy to listen to, and they can either approve it or unapprove it. Say maybe the volume's too low compared to other albums I have. This song doesn't sound right compared to the other ones. Mix it again. That sort of thing. Also track flow, sequence of songs. And the quality of test pressings is usually very good because they want to make it as good as possible to give it a good listen. And it also has the corporate information on it. So we're going to save the best one for last. And we're going to do the least expensive one. I think you can get a copy of this online if you can find one for probably $10 to $15. This one is not expensive. But this is an artist that I like called Hilly Michaels. This is one of my favorite albums that nobody's ever heard of. It's called Calling All Girls. It's a fantastic record. It moves, it hops. It's came out in 1980. So typically what you'll have on a test pressing is, I'll take it out of the sleeve so you can see what we're looking at. Usually you will have a plain white sleeve. It'll have the artist's name on it, and it'll have the person at the record label that this is supposed to go to. Or maybe they hand these out as gifts. I don't know how that works in-house. But anyway, you have the original insert sleeve, just a paper, basic white generic sleeve. Almost all of these test pressings are. Some of them don't have the hole, and they have the sheet attached to the front. They usually tape them on, but this is what a test pressing looks like. There is no track information. It just has the legal stuff, Warner Brothers Records. And this is in pristine condition. And if you check out the inner matrix code, people have noticed over the years all these little letters and numbers in here. They all mean something. Typically, you will actually see, like a 1. You'll have like a serial number for the record, which will have the production number. The numbers will actually, and letters will have the code of the plant it was pressed at. And also, it will have whoever mastered this, a personal message sometimes. Like, if it's Iron Maiden, you'll have one that'll say, like, up the irons, with somebody doing one of these, etching it into the wax, it's called. Because they use lacquer and to make a mold of the record from the original disc, and then they press the records and they machine the pressing disc, which is a metal pressing disc that comes down and squashes a glob of black vinyl, puts a label on as well. So kind of a neat process. There's a lot of videos online for that in the modern era. Happy to say they have their crap together again. So this one here, the number on it says BSK 23431 LW1. So if we look at the test pressing sleeve, that number matches the number on the inside of the inner matrix right here. And it's telling me that it is side 1 on this one. And then this one will have the information. KTB3. There's like 2 asterisks stamped in here. So all of that stuff means something to the label. I'm not quite sure what it means on this record. But anyway, what you will get is, you will get the track listing here. Tracks 1 through 5, 1 through 5. And art department, use only price code. There's no price code on here. Top code M8 and M5. Tape code. So I don't know what a tape code is. Maybe 8 tracks, cassettes. A lot of times it'll tell you if it's going to be available on cassette as well, as I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, Calling All Girls, Hilly Michaels, produced by Roy Thomas Baker and engineered by Ian Taylor for RTB Audiovisual Productions Incorporated, 1980 Warner Brothers Records. And a lot of times you will see this P, it'll be circled. I haven't figured out what that means yet. But anyway, this was job number 931,030. There's the catalog number, BSK 3431, which we saw, artist Hilly Michaels. Now this is from label copy. This is label copy, and was made April 23rd, 1980 for the May 28th release date. So this was an early copy before. Color ink, black, record size 12-inch. Now the color ink, okay, that I'm not quite sure what that means, because it has nothing to do with what ends up being printed for the cover. Has nothing to do with this sheet of paper. It's just a typed out thing. So the color ink, I'd love to see a test pressing for one that is a colored vinyl, because I'll bet you that ink is different. And a lot of people don't understand that vinyl to make black records is not black. And they make it black because that is aesthetically pleasing to the eye, where you can actually see the tracks. And vinyl, in its virgin state, with nothing added to it when it's made, it's kind of a clear color. It's clear vinyl, basically. So they put ink in it to, you'll have colored pellets to make the vinyl colors. Black sounds really good. And there was vinyl made in a day that's different colors. So we'll put this one aside. I'll come back to it when I put it together after this is all done. I just wanted to show that to you. Now the other ones, I'm not going to go through all the trouble of pulling everything out until we get to the last one, which was kind of a special one. But I do want to talk about some of these. pull it out and look at it, see if there's anything different, even though I said I wasn't going to pull it out. I don't want to get these mixed up. But over here, we have side 2 written with a marker. Now, that was done by whoever owned this. That wasn't done by the label. That I can tell you. So somebody did that by hand so they knew what side it was because they wanted to listen to it. This one's got some schmutz on it. But this album is by Procol Harum. It is the album Something Magic. Pretty good album. And it says available on 8-track and cassette. And then we have the M8C and M5C for the tape code. So I don't know if that is the type of magnetic tape. That's what the M stands for. I don't know if that means the 8 means 8-track, 5 means cassette. I have no idea what that means. If you know what that means and you come across this, leave it in the comments. I'll gladly look at it. So anyway, in 1977, Something Magic, Procol Harum. And this was made January 18th, 1977, from Laurie Jansen, a label copy. There's a catalog number, CHR 1130, job number 609,004, black ink, 12-inch. This was revised January 27th, 77, and February 1st, 77, a label change. So the release date was February 25th, 77. So you can see they went through the process of doing this. This was the early test pressing. Then they revised it. And then there was another revision. So I don't know what was changed. I don't have an original copy to look that up, but I could bring this up on like YouTube and see what was released officially and see if there's any differences in how it sounds or editing or time length of the songs. They might have said, this song's too long, cut that shorter. Or we really like this song that's 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so trim something a couple minutes. We got to make it fit in the 20-minute side we have. Because typically on vinyl records, 33 1/3, you have 20 minutes per side is the general rule they would go by. If you would exceed that, the sound quality of the grooves would start to degrade because they were scrunched closer together. So, anyway, we have Procol Harum there. That record's worth about $40. Nothing spectacular. Worth more than the Hilly Michaels, because it's Procol Harum. Now this one here is pretty meaningless to a lot of people. It is easily found. The test pressing isn't. But the vinyl LP is, if you want to buy this studio copy. We have the original insert. It's kind of yellowed, but the outer sleeve isn't. And it's just a plain generic sleeve like this. And we have the sheet here. Now this one here is for an artist that I like. Plays a trumpet. Kind of corny music. I'm sure you've heard of him, Herb Alpert. Later on, he went and did more jazz stuff, which was absolutely fantastic. But when he started out, he was doing kind of like Mexicali type and polka kind of music. But that's what he was doing. And the interesting thing about Herb Alpert is a lot of people these days don't understand who he was. But if you are familiar with A&M Records, which is a very big label, and they ended up selling the label in the late 80s. Herb Alpert made a fortune from that. Herb Alpert is the A in A&M Records. So he was a very, very wealthy man, and he put records out on his own label of his own music, and he was actually quite good at playing the trumpet. And he has a cool Facebook page that he pops in and updates people even today. He's still kicking around. And he's actually still playing around. He's playing the trumpet. So anyway, we got this test pressing from A&M. You can see it's a little more fancy looking, I think. They have their label on here. It's got the date. A&M Records test pressing. This is a test pressing intended for use in determining the technical quality of the recording only. It is not to be sold or distributed to the public. Not yet approved limited distribution. So the limited distribution is in-house to the label. And this one actually tells you side 1 and side 2. But anyway, Herb Alpert started A&M Records with Jerry Moss. And Jerry Moss is the M in A&M. So you had Alpert and Moss was the record label name, A&M Records. So they had a lot of famous artists ranging from Styx to whoever else. So it was a pretty big label. So anyway, this is the test pressing sheet from the master. It's dated December 13th, 1977, A&M Records. And you can see this test pressing sheet is a little different than the Warner Brothers one. Pretty interesting. This record's worth $100. This is a $100 record. It wasn't worth $100 a few years ago, but it is now. And that's what happens with vinyl. It gets more popular. Now the next one is my favorite one. It's also the most valuable one. I only see one of these listed currently. And currently, this is a double album. And currently, I see one listing online that I can find that just has record 1, side 1 and 2. They don't have the full complete set. Just this first record is being sold right now for $500. So both of these together, I have seen this sell in the past for $1,000 to $1,500. So this would be the test pressing for the Black Sabbath album, Greatest Hits of sorts. We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll. This is a very rare collectible. And we have the test pressing. Warner Brothers. Which is kind of interesting because this is a Santa Maria pressing. That's one of the pressing plants used back in the day, which is one of the information you can find in the matrix code that is on the inside here. There are several websites dedicated to being able to spot those and what they are. You'll see some that are stamped with Master Disc. So anyway, this is a Columbia Record Productions test pressing, even though it's Warner Brothers. So corporately, they were associated, obviously, at the time. So the date on here is December 19th, 1975. The album was released on February 6, 1976. So this was kind of an earlier pressing. And it says the revision that was done here was done December 12th, 1976. January 12th. And it says timings added. And so I don't know what timing was changed because I don't see the previous copy. Tape code J8 and J5. So J8, that must be 8-track. That's all I can think of. And J5 is probably cassette, maybe reel-to-reel. They used to sell reel-to-reel albums back in the day. But, excuse me. So anyway, the catalog record number, 2BS2923. Label, color and paper, DJ on sale, and just the usual stuff. Restrictions. So this copy is for the US and Canada only. So they had a different pressing for Europe and elsewhere. So this is kind of cool stuff to have this stuff. And it is also very expensive and pricey. Here is the other copy, record number 2. So basically, from what I've seen from these being listed online, very rarely are these listed. You hardly ever see any. In fact, there's a catalog website that has millions of records, and it says that 6 of the people registered with that website own this, and I'm one of them. So that's pretty cool. I like stuff like that. So anyway, this is same thing, nothing different, you know. And it's got all the information on the inside. And one thing I don't like about 70s records, you see how flexible and thin that is? This was when the oil embargo was going on and people were in gas lines for their vehicles. And the record label wants to keep the price of their product low enough for people to buy it. The economy was tough at the time. And so they started making these records thinner. Now, the drawback of making them thinner, it doesn't really affect the sound quality. But what it does do is over time, records can warp a little bit. You sit them on your turntable and they will have kind of a bubble this way. And then when you turn it over this way, it'll be like a satellite dish. Ever so slightly. But a lot of people ask me how come I use a turntable weight, a clamp it's called. It's a weight that you put over your spindle and pushes down on the label. That's because if you have one that's sitting like this, you put that on there, it flattens it out. You get a better sound quality. The record makes contact with the rubber mat on the turntable better. Sound resonates through your turntable, and you can hear a nice tighter, crisper bottom end through your speakers, and your highs sound really good. It sounds more like what was intended. Now, modern records today, I've seen 125 gram records, 180, 160, 200 gram. Those are really thick records, and those aren't going to warp. They're always going to sit on your turntable nice and flat, and you don't need a clamp for those. So, fortunately, most of the records today are 180 gram. That's a very important selling point to people that buy vinyl, so I don't see them changing that. That is actually something where if you put out a record and it wasn't 180 gram, consumers wouldn't like it and would buy something else because it's really important to people. So anyway, with the conclusion of this is the only 4 test pressings I have. And they're very rare to stumble upon. And I'm very happy to have these. I'll take good care of them. And they sound really good. And for the life of me, I can't tell you, I think this is close to what they released on the album because they had timing changes on the sheet on here. And I can't for the life of me discern the difference because I have 2 studio copies, commercial store copies. I've got 2 copies of this as well. So I got 3 copies of this altogether. I got the test pressing, a modern reissue on 180 gram, which sounds perfecto, and I have an original copy. So I don't know what timings were added, but they did it on both records. So they did something to have to do with the timing. I can't tell you what that is. I don't know if they shortened one song or if they shortened all of them or if they crammed them all to fit on one side because they wanted these track listings on here, and you'll see it's 24 minutes, 19 seconds, 24, 22. Typically, they didn't go over 20 minutes. They didn't like to go over 20 minutes. So if they did, there was a reason. And that's the other thing that this indicates. Like over here, we get 21 minutes and we get 16 minutes. And we have a couple of long songs. And we got a song on here that's 10 minutes. So they had to agree on the length of songs, how they're going to fit on each side, and then you have to figure out flow. And flow is sometimes you could take like a really cool song, and then you could put another good song by the same band, but it doesn't quite go together in a flow. And then, of course, the band is going to want to approve Well, when we do this live, we don't like to play this song after this one because it doesn't really flow well together. So they'll stick it somewhere else where it flows better. So there's a lot of things like that. And like I said, because of the format, you only have a certain amount of time. And then you have to take into consideration 8 tracks, cassettes, reel-to-reel. How are you going to take this same track listing and get it to fit across all the different formats your company is going to sell? Modern era is probably not a big deal. MP3s, CDs, things like that. But back then you had a physical magnetic tape, vinyl pressings. So it was very important to have your product be able to go across. And I would assume with 8-track, I haven't checked, but with 8-track, you probably had a double 8-track or a double cassette. And eventually they started using thinner tape with more tape in the cassette to fit in the same thing. And you get a double album where you get 2 sides like this on one side of the cassette. So they did a lot of things over the years where they changed their products. And but anyway, this was the 70s oil embargo. Save money on petroleum that for the vinyl that they use. And you think about it, if you pay a certain amount for these vinyl pellets that they end up pressing into records, that there's different ways to do it. You get these vinyl pellets, they kind of like melt them together into a gob. They take this gob and they put it on the press. They stick a label on the top, and then they press the record, which is why sometimes you'll get a label that's a little off center, or you'll get a record where they have the hole in the middle from when they pressed it. But during the pressing, the track's kind of like egged a little bit. So when you play the record, you can actually see the record grooves doing this a little bit. And when you listen to that, the record will go wow, wow, ever so slightly. Now that's a copy I don't like to have, but unfortunately there's quite a bit of those out there where one side will be perfect, the other side of the record not so much. And that has to do with how it sat in the press. So I don't know all the technical aspects of that, but I just know that happens. And you can fix that by taking a knife blade and egging the hole. You take a knife and you just kind of like scrape out one side. You turn it, you watch it while it's turning, and then you see where it's going most this way or that way. So you just egg the hole accordingly to where you can move it ever so slightly on the spindle until it spins where it's not moving around. Best way I can explain it. Because nobody likes to listen to a record where you get this nice acoustic or piano part and you get this piano note ringing out, bing, and all you hear is wee, wee, wee every time it goes around. So there is a way to fix that if you want to be fussy. If you don't want to damage your original copy and have another copy to play, you can do that too. A lot of times you can buy a record for $5 and you get it and it's messed up, so you just buy another one. So, you know, a lot of people have asked me, what's the best way to fix a warped record? Well, I have fixed warped records by leaving them sandwiched in the collection for a few years. They flatten out on their own. They really do over time. But the best way to replace a warped record is to buy another one. That's really the easiest way. Anyway, that concludes this video. It's been kind of a little bit of a lengthy one, but we had a lot of information to talk about that's interesting. You just don't see these very often, and they're really cool to have, especially with a band like Black Sabbath, one of my favorites. So this is one of my top 5 records in the collection, easy. Another one would be a Black Sabbath Master of Reality signed by the entire band. Original lineup. That is a very, very valuable record. So maybe I'll make a video for that one at some point. It'll be a lot shorter than this one. But anyway, if you're still watching, this is 30 minutes. Thank you very much. I'm going to take photographic stills of each one of these sheets of paper and stick it in the video. And so thank you for watching and enjoying vinyl. Play the records, man. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.